So my name is Kumiko Hayashi, and my father is from Kumamoto, Japan, and my mother is from the United States, and I was born in Santa Fe. The last time I was back was 1 year ago, and we did a ceremony on the land, which was really, really powerful, reconnecting with where I came from. So I actually left when I was 5. I haven't really been back except for just a couple times for ceremonies, so it definitely feels like home where my spirit came from. At the same time, where we come from is not necessarily where we're destined to go. So I feel a connection with the Southwest, and I feel a connection with the special sacred lands of New Mexico. At the same time, my journey has taken me other places as well. Yeah, so I went to a university called Soka University of America, and this university is founded by a man named Daisaku Ikeda, who had the vision of creating a school to create global citizens for world peace. And so over 60% of the students are actually from another country, and there's only 500 students, so I was blessed to have been able to go to school with so many people from around the world. And while I was there, I had this vision of documenting other people's stories and giving people voices who normally aren't heard. So I was really blessed to have gone to Ecuador to study, and then my final year in university, I was really looking forward to graduating and to inviting my father, and while I'm Japanese and my ancestry, my roots are Japanese, being born in New Mexico, I always felt this disconnect from my lineage, from my blood lineage. And also, growing up, my mother asked my father to teach us Japanese. She said, you speak Japanese, I'll speak English, and that way they can learn both. And for some reason, he said no. So he had the full capacity to teach us and never did. And every time that my mother would ask him to share about his family in Japan or something about his life there, he simply didn't want to share anything. So I grew up without knowing my grandmother, my grandfather, or anything about my Japanese lineage. And so fast forward in university, I was really, really excited to see my father there. I love my father. He's one of the most sincere, sweet people that I know. And yet there was always this mystery of why he didn't want to share where he came from. And so when the time came to invite him to the graduation, he wrote to me an email and he said, actually, I will not be able to attend because I'm going to be remarried. And so my new wife, is actually asking me to no longer have a relationship with you. And so for me, it was like this cold bucket of water, poured over my body. Why would my father say this? And yet I had so much compassion because my father raised us, he raised us basically alone. My parents divorced when I was 12, and when my parents divorced, my father had made some vow to himself that he was not going to be in a relationship until we were older, but he never shared this with us. And so when we graduated, he felt that he could now be in another relationship and he wanted to honor us. And so when he explained why he wasn't going to be able to see us, he told me that his new wife actually always had the dream of having a child. And it was always her dream, but she could never get pregnant. And so, she married my father, assuming she wouldn't be able to get pregnant, and then they actually were able to conceive and she got pregnant. And my father told her, I have raised 2 children and I'm no longer at the point to be able to raise another child. So if you want to be together, I'm asking you not to have this child. But if you choose to have it, you'll have to raise it alone in Japan. So she basically was presented with this decision of being with a person she loved and giving up her dream to have a child, or having this child and raising it alone. And so she actually decided to have an abortion, and she had the abortion, got rid of the child, and I think there was a deep feeling of sadness, and so she asked my father, please do not see your children for some time. So, imagine this is one of the happiest moments. I'm graduating from this amazing university with this great dream to create value and contribute to humanity, and yet the person I love the most told me I can no longer see you. So I practice a form of Buddhism, Nichiren Buddhism, and I chanted to really transform this sadness into value. And so I decided I was just going to buy a one-way ticket to Ecuador. So 5 days after my graduation, I bought a one-way ticket, and I had no money. I had really no plan, although I knew a good friend that I ended up, staying at his place. And so from that time, I had this vision. I want to create a movie or some sort of media that can inspire humanity. And so while I was deeply suffering internally, I kept chanting and taking action to transform all of the suffering to help others. I then left and lived with different indigenous tribes for what I thought would be just a few weeks, turned into 3 years. It showed me how valuable this sense of community and relationship is. And in a sense, I was also seeking something. I was able to transform this poison of what I experienced with my father into medicine through value of filming and living with people. And at the same time, I felt I was looking for my own lineage in the Amazon rainforest. And so many times I would go and people would say, you're Japanese, and why are you here? What are you doing? And so I'm a filmmaker, and I want to share these stories. I'm making a documentary, and yet there was something much deeper happening. And I felt that my lineage and my roots was in the Amazon rainforest, and I felt that's where I belonged. And yet when I would go from tribe to tribe and see their different culture, I would always say, I'm Japanese, and they would ask me, okay, what's your culture like? And at that point, I didn't have much to share. And so I had this seeking spirit. And then, after this process of making this film, I was able to sit with yahe, with this plant medicine that has been used for thousands of years to connect people with themselves and with their community and with their environment. And through this plant medicine, I realized, I'm really proud to be Japanese, and yet through this whole experience that happened with my father and not knowing where I came from, allowed me to connect on such a deep level with these indigenous people. And I did things that most people could never imagine, being 23 years old, going 8 hours in a canoe down a river with no internet, basically into a community where I could have had many things happen to me being alone as a young woman. And yet I had so much faith that I was protected and that there was something deeper I was doing. And so that courage that I had came through these kind of murky waters. And I really love to share with people this metaphor of the lotus flower. And the lotus flower is one of the most beautiful flowers that comes from the murkiest waters. And so the idea is that actually the most beautiful experiences and beautiful things come from the darkest places, and it's in that transformation. And the lotus flower is one of the only flowers that when it blooms at the same moment it gives the seed, which signifies the simultaneity of cause and effect. So the moment that you determine something, or the moment that you decide, you've already manifested the effect, but it's just a matter of, in time and space, it coming forward. And so when I determined I'm going to create a film that is going to awaken humanity to protect the sanctity of life, the effect was already there. It was just a matter of me taking the time to manifest it. And so now I'm the director of this film, The Roots Awaken, with the intention to awaken humanity to protect the sanctity of life. And then through the process, actually, I involved myself in the story. At first, it was just others, and then I decided as a young woman, I would like to share that other young women and other young people can also have the courage to go into situations or transform difficult experiences into something that can create value for others.